Welcome back to Scotty's Hobbies. Today, April 24th, 2025, was another BAR advisory group meeting. What's BAR, you might ask? The Bureau of Automotive Repair. That's who overlooks the smog check program here in California. And yes, you do still have to smog your vehicle in the state of California. And it's probably not going away anytime soon, if at all. So, this is going to be the changes or possible changes that came out of this meeting today for the BAR-97 testing, the sniffer test, the roller test, whatever you guys want to call it. I'm going to go over what the possible changes are that are going to be coming up. Before we get too far into this video, please hit that like button right now, subscribe, hit the ring bell so you don't miss any of my future videos. Now let's get going. In this meeting today, they talked about a lot of things. The OBD2 readiness monitors requirements are going to change, but in this video, I'm going to cover the BAR-97 testing that it's not really going to change. They're just trying to make it easier for the vehicles that require those smogs to be able to get that smog inspection done. The state is getting a lot of complaints that these older vehicles can't find stations to smog them. They have to travel long distances to get the smog, and they're just too darn expensive. I drive this old vehicle to save money. I can't afford another vehicle, but I'm going to have to go pay $200 to get a smog, $150 to get a smog. It's just unrealistic in a lot of circumstances. There's a few ideas that the state is coming up with. I'm going to cover just all of them in general, but the 96 and 99 vehicles, there's going to be a little bit more of a difference, so stay tuned. I'll go over that in just a second. And if you have any smog issues or ran into any smog issues, make sure to comment below and let me know the issues that you've ran into. The BAR meeting in July, I'm going to try to run up there and actually be in person and be able to ask questions and give a statement if I can. So if you have any problems or poor experiences that the smog check program provided to you, comment below. Let me know. Maybe it's something I could bring up there and I might learn something from your experience that I just didn't know. Being a smog tech, running shops, managing shops, I stopped smogging in about 2017. Even back then, when there was a ton of more of the older vehicles that took the BAR-97 test, it was hard to get my technicians to even want to smog that vehicle. We would call up sometimes and be like, hey, I have a 94 Accord, how much would it smog? How fast can you get it done? A lot of times the technician, they would give the full price, the $119, and it's going to be about a 3-hour wait. That just makes it so people are not motivated to come in to get a smog check at your station. But then you call with a 2003 Honda Civic, oh yeah, I get you done right now, 49 out the door. It sucks. That's the way it is with a lot of smog techs. They just don't want to smog these older vehicles. Now what the state is thinking about is they're going to get a contractor to contract out shops that will sign up for being on this contract to say, yes, I will perform these smog checks if we have a list of stations where people can go, per se. You get your DMV renewal form, and at the top where it says you need a STAR test, it'll tell you what station to take it to in your area that will smog your vehicle. Rather than you having to go find somebody, they'll direct you to what stations or station in your area that could actually smog your vehicle. So that makes it more of a benefit for these stations to have the machines to smog the older vehicles. There's a lot of stations out there that smog one vehicle a week, 2 vehicles a week, 1 vehicle a month. There's a lot of stations that just don't do the smog, whether it be there's not the vehicles in the area or the technicians don't want to do it. While we're on that subject, at the end of this video, I'm going to provide a pretty long clip of the part of the meeting that pertains to this subject. It's pretty long, and also in the description below, there's going to be a link so you can go check out the full meeting, but you'll be able to see everything I'm talking about at the end. So this video is going to be pretty long, but a lot of it is because at the end of this video is going to be the BAR meeting that covers this subject. So with the contracted stations, they're going to obviously be obligated to smog the vehicles because they're signed up under contract. They're going to get more of the vehicles that are BAR-97, pre-95, pre-99 that go on those machines. So it gives them the incentive to actually have the machine, to get the contract, to have it there, to have it maintained, to have it up and running. So it'll benefit that smog repair shop or that smog shop and the consumer, because they're going to know where they could go to get the test done rather than trying to go through hoops to be able to find a shop to do it. Now the state sent out a survey to stations 54% of the stations said they would continue doing BAR-97 tests just as it is, that they'll continue doing it, period. But 64% of those stations that replied to their survey said they would continue doing the smog checks on BAR-97 if they were contracted. So 64% of the stations pretty much are saying, if you're going to guarantee that you're going to send me cars, I'll do it. It's a win-win, right? So there's actually stations out there that do want to do this. Obviously not all of them want to, but maybe if they're contracted through the state, it'll be easier for you to find a station to actually get the test done. And part of that contract might be a mandated fee that they could charge. So you won't be able to, or you won't have to call everywhere or call around and get a wide variation of the testing prices from $200 or $95. This station will be required to charge a certain amount and perform your vehicle. They have to. Then they're looking on top of everything. To be a star center in California, as it is right now, you have to have a BAR-97 machine and be able to test all vehicles. How many of you have a star certified vehicle or star required vehicle smog, and you can't find a star center that could smog your vehicle because their system's broke, they don't have it, a technician can't do it? Those are all rules that are kind of breaking. They should be able to test all vehicles if they are a star center. So if you call somebody a star center and their machine, or they don't have a machine, just think about it. Now, to make the smogs cheaper for the 96 to 99 year model vehicles that are currently going on the rollers or the BAR-97 smog test machine, the state is contemplating making those OIS tests. So making it so those are going to be plug and play OBD2 tests only. That will greatly reduce the price of those smog inspections for those vehicles. But given all that information, that's still kind of leaving the 95 and older vehicles in the dust on bringing down the price. Somebody commented during the BAR meeting that instead of upgrading BAR-97 or going to this contract system, why don't we add a 4-gas analyzer to the OIS system, do a sniffer test on all vehicles up to a certain year, like really new ones, don't worry about it, but we'll be able to do a sniffer test and just do a 2-speed idle test on all vehicles, including the 95 and older vehicles that need the sniffer test. What do you guys think about that? I kind of think that's a good idea, but it might make it harder for those vehicles that are, what, 2000 and newer to be able to pass smog as it is right now, or the 96 and newer to be able to pass smog, depending if any of that changes. Now, what are some issues that you've ran into trying to get a smog on your older vehicle? We're hoping SB 712 could pass. There's a lot of rules that might change out there, but as it is right now, nothing is going to make smog checks go away in the state of California. Tell me about it. If you have anything that you want to bring up to the Bureau of Automotive Repair that I could possibly pass that information along, I am going to try to make it to that meeting up in July, hopefully. Thanks for watching Scotty's Hobbies. Like, subscribe, share, and I will see you guys on the next hopefully helpful video.
All right. Our next presentation, very timely with one of the questions that was asked about pre-OBD2 vehicles. We are looking at and exploring, I think is the best word, an approach to future testing of pre-OBD2 vehicles, given some statutory authority that was provided to us in our AB 1263 sunset bill from a couple of years ago, and we're doing due diligence based on that authority. Obviously, there's some things to look at, and Clay will explain that given the pending legislation before us, both SB 712 and AB 1368, that would be potentially impact the Bureau moving forward. But we certainly are interested in getting feedback from our stakeholders, primarily our smoke check inspection industry on this approach, future approach to testing, possible approach, I should say, to testing. Anyway, Clay, welcome.
Thank you for the introduction, and thank you to Jerry for asking that question, and thank you to answering that question and getting it out of the way so I don't have to answer it. I very much appreciate that. Just in terms of a quick introduction, what we're going to be talking about today, Assembly Bill 1263, or our Sunset Bill, had several provisions we're going to be talking about today. First, authorizing BAR to establish a contracted testing network for model year 1995 and older vehicles or pre-OBD2 vehicles. Some of the language includes that it must be competitively bid, and also included some direction that it may include subcontracted licensed smog check stations as well. The other provision authorizing BAR to begin testing model year 1996 to 1999 vehicles on the BAR onboard diagnostic inspection system, or the BAR OIS. Couple of considerations to think about as we get into this presentation. First, although this population of vehicles, model year 76 to 95, is relatively small, it's about 654,000 vehicles, it does represent a fairly large part of the overall emissions inventory. The number here is 16.8%. That is actually incorrect. I apologize for that. We will post an updated presentation. I blame Zach. So just for the record, I blame Zach. No, of course it wasn't Zach. It's actually for 2024, it was 15%, and for 2025, it was 14%, and that data is actually in a table near the end of the presentation, and it is correct. So apologize for that oversight. Continued testing of this population of vehicles is important to meet state air quality plans, which are documented in the state implementation plan, CARB commitments for reducing pollution. So something to think about. Also, obviously, shifting model year 1996 to 1999 without establishing an alternative network for those older pre-OBD2 vehicles would exacerbate some of the existing problems we have with supporting testing of that population of vehicles, would exacerbate challenges for owners finding a BAR-97 inspection, and potentially increase pressure to exempt that population of vehicles from smog altogether. So I know we've talked a little bit about SB 712 and Assembly Bill 1368. We'll talk a little bit more about those later. And obviously there's some impact depending on what happens there to what we're proposing with this, this contracted network. So fine, next slide. Yes. So we see a ton of potential benefits, which is obviously why we're evaluating this proposal. Potentially improved air quality, better inspections for this population of vehicles, an opportunity to control the cost of BAR-97 costs to consumers, creating a contractual mechanism to ensure sufficient program area coverage so motorists have an easy time finding BAR-97 inspections. Also an opportunity to remove burdensome BAR-97 equipment requirements for STAR stations who no longer want to continue BAR-97 testing. I can tell you I have had a lot of stations reach out to me directly in support of this for that specific reason. Good stations that just don't want to maintain a BAR-97 because they just don't do the volume to support maintaining that equipment, which is a requirement to maintain STAR. So I actually have some data around kind of those numbers, and we'll look at some of that a little later on. This would also increase the population of vehicles that could be tested on the BAR OIS, and finally, allows a pathway for existing high-performing stations who want to continue BAR-97 testing to do so. And I can tell you, I've heard from a lot of stations that are also in that boat that very much want to continue to do BAR-97 testing, and we've got some data around that population of folks as well. So in terms of today's discussion, most importantly, we're seeking input on if and when this contracted network should be established, knowing that implementing this is going to take some time. It's years. It's not days or months. Really want to focus on data-driven decisions. A lot of what you're going to see today is pretty data-centric, and that's intentional. That's on purpose. I don't want to ever make a decision based on anything other than facts and data and real, right? Something real, something tangible. So we will get into the data. First, before we get into the some of the data, we're going to review the data collection methodology that I've presented previously. Next, we're going to get into some of the data. And then finally, really interested if anybody has any additional thoughts on additional data we should be looking at, additional metrics, whether that's quantitative, qualitative, anything else we should be looking at as we consider the implementation of this network. So real quick, next slide. I'm just going to go through, we've presented this already, but just kind of what we're looking at as we look to make this decision. First and foremost, the price of a BAR-97 and a BAR OIS inspection. Obviously, one of the goals of this is to keep the price down for motorists seeking BAR-97 inspections. So We actually did some telephone surveys of 50 or more stations in 4 different geographic regions: Southern California, Central Valley, Bay Area, Sacramento Metro. So I'll be sharing some of that data in a few minutes, and it's pretty interesting what we were able to collect. So we'll walk through that in a few minutes. The next piece we wanted to look at was Smog Check Station's desire to continue to do BAR-97 testing if model year 96 to 99 are removed. So we did send out a survey, and we will be walking through those survey results in a few minutes as well. Another data point we wanted to look at was the BAR-97 vendors' ability to maintain this equipment over time. So we did have some meetings with the existing BAR-97 equipment providers, and we will be sharing some information we collected there as well. Next, we wanted to look at the BAR-97 test volume, including star and non-star stations, specifically stations with less than 1 test per day, stations with less than 1 test per week, and actually a population, we've got some stations with less than 1 test per month, and also stations doing more than 2 per day. So kind of trying to slice it in a way that we can look at and make sense, you know, and weigh that as a factor into this decision. Lastly, looking at the population of older vehicles, specifically, you know, 76 to 95, pre-OBD2 96 to 99, looking at the contribution to the overall emissions inventory. And finally, we are planning at some point to do an RFI, a request for information. I think there's some good information to solicit from potential bidders. We have not done that yet, so that's kind of the one piece of the methodology that we haven't put forth yet, but plan to at some point fairly soon. Okay, into the actual meat here, the data. So, as I mentioned, spent quite a bit of time surveying stations. We did not identify ourselves as BAR as part of this. We pretended to be a consumer. We picked up a pretty representative sample of vehicles. So we called the station, said, hey, I have a 1996 Accord. I'm looking for an inspection. We aggregated all that data. The highest price reported was $110. This is for a OIS inspection, I apologize. Median price was $60. The highest price reported was $110. For a BAR-97, the median price was $95, and the highest price reported was $208. So quite a gap there, not surprising. We all are aware that a lot of stations charge more for a BAR-97 inspection. One of the interesting observations, we were actually expecting a ton of variance across the different geographic regions, and it wasn't there. Overall, everything was within about 10%. So statewide, the costs are pretty similar. So thought that was interesting and worth pointing out. On to the surveys. Well, actually, I'll pause there. Any questions on the survey results? Why we did that? Any comments, questions? Okay. On to ET Blast surveys. So the first station was sent to all star stations, about 3,500 star stations. We received 575 responses. The first question we asked is, would you continue to maintain a BAR-97 EIS if it was not required for star certification, right? Trying to get a feel for how many stations want out, right? They don't want to do these inspections anymore. 56% said yes, it's 324, 44% said no. So actually more than half would continue to maintain their BAR-97. I actually thought that was interesting, given only 575 of the 3,500 stations responded. My guess is a lot of the remaining 3,000 that didn't respond probably aren't as interested in maintaining the BAR-97, probably so disinterested they didn't respond to our survey. But that said, in terms of is this network viable moving forward, 324 stations saying they would want to participate is encouraging. That's a healthy amount of stations. The second question we asked is, would your station be interested in joining an inspection network as a subcontractor to a BAR contracted vendor? This would be the only way to continue to inspect model year 76 to 95 vehicles. Even more positively, 65% said yes, 376, 35% said no. So it seems that even more stations would be interested, knowing that they kind of had a more captive audience, right? Knowing that they would be getting a higher volume of inspections potentially because of less people participating. So the next survey was sent to non-star stations. The question was simplified to just one question. The question being, would your station be interested in joining an inspection network as a subcontractor, knowing that this would be the only way to continue to inspect pre-OBD2 vehicles? Again, pretty positive results. 59% said yes, 391 stations want to continue to participate, 41% said no. So if you add up the star and non-star stations, that's plenty of stations to support a contracted network. So interesting results there. On to equipment manufacturer feedback. We did meet with both equipment manufacturers. Both vendors are very committed to continuing to support the platform and are continuing, research and development around, maintaining that platform, not just for California, but for other jurisdictions that use that equipment as well. So positive results there. Which brings us to BAR-97 test volume. So you can see the big line right down the middle of the graph, which is where we are today. Those data points on the left side of that line are actual data points. Everything to the right of that is projected based on historical vehicle retirement trends to our best guess. So as you can see, with the orange line, 76 to 99, just under 1 million or so of those vehicles still registered in California. And the population of older vehicles, 76 to 95 pre-OBD2 vehicles, just under 500,000 or so of those still on the road today. Brings us to the next slide, which is BAR-97 inspection rates for star stations, so for 76 to 99 vehicles. So as you can see with the purple line, the top trend line, that is the total number of star stations out there today. As you can see, about 3,000 or so are doing one or less tests daily. As you get towards the bottom, right around 1,000 doing one test or less weekly. And a smaller number down at the very bottom doing one or less tests monthly or none at all. So next slide, we'll kind of take a similar look. So this just excludes 96 to 99 vehicles. Same graph, same population of star stations. As you can imagine, we just have a higher number doing one or less daily, a higher number doing one or less weekly, a higher number doing one or less monthly, and then a higher number of stations doing none at all. It's just a smaller population of vehicles, but interesting to contrast those trend lines. We'll certainly make the raw data available to anybody that wants to kind of do that analysis. I'm not going to take the time to go through that in detail as part of this, but I guess for me, the takeaway here is there's a lot of stations not, maintaining BAR-97 equipment that aren't doing a lot of inspections. So next slide, please. There we go. Pretty simple here, just some of the raw data that support some of these graphs, but BAR-97 test volume by station. So stations that performed one or less BAR-97 weekly, a little over 1,000 star, almost 2,000 non-star. Stations that performed one or less BAR-97 tests daily, almost 2,900 star, almost 2,200 non-star. And then you see the population of stations right there doing 2 or more daily, 631 star, 64 non-star, and then just the totals down at the bottom. All right, next slide. So this just shows the total population of vehicles, breaks it out by 76 to 95 and 96 to 99. I already shared the 654,000 number. That number jumps up to almost 790,000 if you roll in 96 to 99. And next slide takes us over to the emissions inventory contributions. So I mentioned the error on slide 3 with the 16.8%. This table includes all the correct data by model year. So you can see in terms of tons per day, and also in terms of the percentages that those model year groups represent in this chart. So again, I don't want to kind of go through the details of all that, but certainly available to have that conversation or provide the raw data to anybody that's interested in looking at that in more detail. So that leads us to other considerations. Certainly want to get everyone's thoughts on if we should be doing this, if we shouldn't be doing this, and if so, either way, why? And what else should we be looking at? Is there other data we should be looking at? Is there other industry trends we should be looking at? Certainly the pending legislation is important, and we may have to pivot and make some changes to this. You know, both 712 and 1368 would impact that population of vehicles. It would shrink it down, right? And it would impact the overall contribution to the emissions inventory. You know, I'll go out on a limb and say, you know, if 1368 was past the rolling 30-year rolling exemption, as of right now, I think that takes us to 95, right? And I don't know that we would establish a contracted network to inspect 1 year of vehicles, right? Yeah. So it really interested. Obviously, we are following both of these pieces of legislation carefully, and we're going to tailor our approach and as needed to make sure we honor the intent of the legislature and make sure we're implementing the program within the framework and the boundaries that we're given. So I think that's it for me.
All right, good
questions?
presentation. Thanks, Clay. Questions from advisory group members? Dave Kusa to my right.
Thanks, Pat. Clay, the shops that said they would participate, what is, if you know, what's their distribution across those 4 regions we looked at? Are they like evenly distributed, or are they, my concern is that, you know, more rural areas probably have a higher percentage of older vehicles. And if there's a, you know, much less dense population of testing availability, then that part of the population has, you know, has a struggle to get the test.
Yeah, great question. We did collect some zip code data as part of that survey. Not that that's a perfect way, but it's kind of the best way we could think to do that. The distribution's pretty good. Certainly, we could probably do a more detailed analysis of rolling some of that up, but oh yeah, overall it looked pretty good.
Good. Okay. And then I would challenge the manufacturers a little bit harder on their desire and ability to maintain or repair these vehicles. Not these vehicles, the equipment, the BAR-97 equipment. No one has come to me and said, God, I love those guys. They've done a great job. But I've had, you know, anecdotal, I get it. But, you know, a lot of people say, I can't get them to fix my equipment. They don't have the parts. They don't come out. They don't show up, so on and so forth, right? So, you know, I'd hate to see a program in place and the equipment manufacturers, you know, dust their hands of it.
Sure.
Yeah.
Fair enough. You know, one point to make along those lines, as that population of equipment shrinks, theoretically, it becomes easier to support, right? We have a lot of equipment that's being serviced that isn't being used.
Yeah.
Right? Because to maintain your star, you have to calibrate your equipment every so often, right? The equipment has to be functioning. So theoretically, there's an opportunity to provide a better level of service because there's less equipment out there to support. But certainly understand and appreciate the comment. Thanks.
Thank you.
Additional comments from advisory group members? Yes, Bud Rice.
I'm just kind of thinking out loud for a second here. In many cases, the market wins. And no matter what you try to do, the market wins, or you end up having to have government try to subsidize the cost of the market, one or the other, okay? So where I'm going with this is that most of the time, shops have many things, many services that they're doing. And then here comes the one car in and they want to have an older smog check. Well, if they already have their hands full on doing some other stuff, they may or may not be able to do that car for that customer at that time. And so the guy either has to wait or he has to drive off the lot and go try to find somebody else because of the demands that are placed on a particular service center at that moment. If that's all they did was smog checks, you'd have a better shot of at least being able to get in there and get it, because that's all they're doing. But if this guy's doing tires, brakes, changing water pumps, here comes the smog guy, well, I got my hands full on these other things, you may find that they have to kind of say, okay, hang on a minute, I can do you at 4 tonight, but I can't do you until then. And the customer's going, well, I gotta pick up my laundry and do some stuff. So my point is the market is kind of in play here all at the same time. If there was a financial outcome that went along with this, then shops could enter that as well. But in some cases, they may not make enough money providing that service to help pay the freight of maintaining that equipment and doing those kinds of things. So again, there's another decision, market-based, that has to be added into the mix as well. So it's a tough decision for a shrinking market and somebody's got to pay. So either the customer has to pay more for the service that they're asking for, or the government has to somehow step in and help to try to level the playing field and subsidize that a little bit. But in the end, the market wins, because something like that has to happen in order for this to even itself out again. So I'm a little nervous about how that might play out in this thing. So the fact that you're in there, scratching your head about how do these numbers fit, the truth is they probably don't fit. So then how do we accommodate the fact that they don't fit? And that's where the grinding the knuckles happens, I think, is when that happens. I just want to make that comment. Sorry.
Yeah, I appreciate that. I'm nervous too. This is obviously a big change for the program. I think a lot of this, to me, comes down to cost and convenience for the motorist, right? If I can't establish this network in a way that reduces the costs and enhances the accessibility of those inspections, it may be a non-starter. All that said, I think there are some really interesting opportunities that, the contracted network allows the state to implement some program parameters that I can't do through regulation or law. A contract's a different vehicle. It's a different animal. And it allows, I think there's some opportunities to manipulate some of those market conditions in a way that may get us where we need to be.
Yeah, just real quickly. I don't know how many here have gone to Costco and had a Costco hot dog and soda for the $1.65 or whatever it is. People love that, okay? But Costco makes no money at that. And they're willing to do that because of an offset of having people come into the store.
Sure.
Okay. I think there could also be some of that could be true in the service centers, where I'm not going to make any money off of doing this guy, but that guy's been my customer for the last 15 years. And I'm going to, if I don't make that much money on this, I know I'm doing this and this and this and this for the guy. So I'm willing to have him eat the hot dog and the soda with me. I'm okay with that, so there's some other things, but again, that's still part of the market forces that are in play here. Just like Costco makes the decision that that's a market decision for them. Here's a market decision for us, but it's got to pan out somewhere in here in order for it to make sense. Sorry.
No, really appreciate the comment. I agree 100%. I think that's why I'm so focused on data as part of this. And I think the RFI will help to reveal additionally some of that data and some of the ways, maybe opportunities to keep prices low and improve the experience for motorists seeking a BAR-97 inspection. But yeah, absolutely share your concerns and appreciate the comment.
Yes, Jack Maladano.
Thanks, Clay, for the presentation. Let me take it from a consumer standpoint. So currently, under current law, a consumer gets in their registration, they have a 1990 vehicle, whatever, pre-OBD, and they end up, it tells them to go to a star station, right? And they have choice, right? They can go to any star station they want, depending on price or whatever currently, right? Now, under this new proposal that takes place with subcontractors, how is that going to work? Is the notice going to say you have to go to a particular shop or the station? Is the price going to be fixed, or what are you envisioning the changes?
Yeah, good question. Getting a little bit ahead of where we are today.
Yeah.
Those are all, well, certainly the DMV registration notice obviously should direct the consumer to go to the right place. So we haven't engaged with DMV yet on if that's possible or how we could do that. But obviously the goal would be to give the consumer as clear instructions as possible in terms of what they need to do to meet the smog check requirement, right? In terms of the second question, how do we envision this? We are meeting internally right now and really exploring all the opportunities that a contracted model provides us versus the existing model. Certainly as part of that competitive process, you could provide for a fixed price. That could be part of what you evaluate the vendor based on. You could provide a fixed price by area, depending on some factors, CPI. You could allow that price to vary based on the total population of vehicles as it shrinks to go up. There's a lot of ways to help potentially manage that and make that work. So yeah, certainly capping the price is one option, one opportunity that we are exploring, because ultimately the price to the consumer is a really important part of this.